Got the notification. All right. If you just do it, it'll turn out okay. Welcome everyone to Talking Time with Caffeine, the only podcast where stuff happens. I got my returning guest Tony Reed here again, and I got my new guest. Introduce yourself, new guest for today.
Hi, everyone. It's Eric Vierthaler, and I also go by Eric Vierthaler 92 on YouTube. On Wednesday night, I actually had my very first ever live debate. I actually debated Ken Hovind, which is interesting because of the fact that Tony and I both have debated him.
So I'm gonna ask you the same question. I guess he had disconnected. He's on his phone, so his connection issues, I think. But I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked Tony last time. You watched his debate before, right?
I watched. You mean that I watched the one that he had with Kent on Modern Day Debate?
Well, yeah, him and the other one he's had before.
I only watched the one that he did recently on Modern Day Debate,
okay.
But yeah, it's just, a lot of people will agree it was just a huge issue with that, was the audio problems that they were having. But at the same time, though, they also did the best that they could.
Yeah, but I was wondering, did he used to have the same lines he had in Tony's debate, or did he have new material?
It seemed like that he had a lot of new material just from what I saw in that debate, but yeah. So about that debate. So right before my debate, Standing for Truth and both Ken Hovind were actually talking about that debate, like that Tony had with Ken Hovind, and both of them were all kind of, well, not kind of, they were. Both Standing for Truth and Ken Hovind were talking crap about Tony, saying, "Oh yeah, Ken, I totally think that you scared off Tony," and so and then I was the one actually defending him, and then I said, Tony actually said that he actually has plans for more How Creation Taught Me Real Science videos, so no, he did not get scared off.
Were you scared, Tony?
Oh no. What I was surprised at is that we decided on a topic and he didn't address it at all. He addressed a totally different topic. I was like, what has more scientific application? And I even started the beginning of the debate by saying, look, I'll grant you, just for the sake of argument, that evolution is wrong and creationism is correct. So let's see what we have that actually applies, like we can use in the real world. And he never provided anything.
Well, that's Ken Hovind for you.
Oh, Eric, did he try to sell his DVDs during the debate?
Oh, yes. At the very end, he was trying to do he was doing it. And so, and then I actually wanted to, pretty much project the same thing onto him. And I'm like, hey, if you're going to recommend me DVDs, why don't I recommend you books? And so, and then that actually is what I did. I actually recommended him this. Which, out of all the creation and evolution books I have read, this is definitely one of the best ones I have ever read. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian, atheist, agnostic, whatever. I strongly recommend that anybody of any sort of religious views to definitely read this book.
So before you start your debate, you went from your recent YC and now you're a theistic evolutionist.
Yeah. So
what was your journey like?
Yeah. So yeah, that was what I mentioned during my debate. So, growing up in my family, just personally, my parents didn't really care if I was into evolution. My mom's parents, they are very, very hardcore young Earth creationists, but at least that her parents, actually believe dinosaurs existed, because there actually are some young Earthers who think that they're fake.
Like the Christians Against Dinosaur group, whatever that weird girl.
Claire, oh my lord! I saw that video, I saw that video, like with Aaron Raw and Kristen Claire. He had to explain to her for a whole hour what a fossil is. I mean, how does it take you a whole hour just to know what a fossil is? And so going back to my story, I'm sorry, I got kind of.
We do that here.
But so anyway, so in high school and junior high, I was more of a spiritual person, but not religious. But then the year after I graduated, I decided to. No, actually, it was 2 years after I graduated. After I graduated high school, I converted to Christianity because I had some pretty dark. Not to get too personal, but I had a very dark event happen in my life. And then the big question that I had about Christianity was, what about the dinosaurs? You know, does the Bible say anything about dinosaurs? And I would ask my mom, and my mom would just tell me that the Bible says that a day to God is like 10,000 years, and a day is like 10,000 years. But all around me, there could be all these other Christians arguing about evolution and whatnot, and so then that kind of made me feel like that verse was just not enough, and so then actually kind of compelled me to do my own research on it, and so I began my investigation about what the Bible says about dinosaurs in February 2018. I started that investigation by watching a documentary by Restoring Genesis called Forbidden History, Dinosaurs and the Bible. And that was my first time being exposed to like the Ica stones and all this other stuff like Dragon Legends. And back then I wasn't as scientifically literate as I am now. And so hearing all that, and I'm like, I've never heard of any of this stuff before. And it really, really blew my mind. And what convinced me the most was Dragon Legends. It was because back then I never really thought about, the origin, like the origin of dragons. And I thought, hey, dragons and dinosaurs are somewhat similar. And then I investigated it quite a bit. And then in May of 2018, I live in Montana, and there actually is a creation museum in my state. And I had to drive 3 hours out, and then after I got done going on tour at the museum, even though I started to doubt the dinosaurs lived millions of years ago when I first saw that documentary back in February, but then when I went to that creation museum, was when that I full on converted to young Earth creationism. I even remember I bought a DVD at that museum, and I bought 2 books there, which I actually even have now. And so afterwards, I would debate online with people, through typing about young Earth creationism versus an old Earth and evolution. Yeah. I got creamed.
Yeah, I used to be an old Earth creationist. I never knew young Earth creationism was a thing until recently. Honestly, never did.
Yeah, and also what's funny, it was the same thing for me too, when I began my investigation. At that time, I never even knew that young Earth creationism was even a thing. And before I began my investigation, I didn't even know who Ken Ham was. I didn't know who Kent Hovind was. I didn't know about any of those guys.
Yeah, I knew who Kent Hovind was until I dropped out of church about 10 years ago.
So I'm assuming that you deconverted from Christianity?
I don't know if I say deconverted. I don't really know what I am. I haven't really gone to church in 10 years.
That's a long time.
I still have. It's hard sometimes, just to get rid of everything,
So, from my understanding, you do still believe in God?
Yeah, theist little bit.
So, so what makes you not so certain if you can classify yourself as a Christian then?
I don't know. It's just brain is. I don't know. It's just all over the place. I can't really explain it.
So in other words, it's probably not easy to put into words. It's kind of complicated.
Yeah, it just. I know it was after I had a falling out with my church after that. Then after I stopped going, I see all these things about like I never noticed before, like the Westboro Baptist Church people and all that stuff. Like all these Christians are crazy people, like it's just it's just weird.
No, even though that there might be some crazy people in one religion or in another, it also doesn't mean that every single person
I know
will be either. So I actually didn't finish my story.
Yeah, we do that again.
But that's fine. And I have been a part of a Facebook group called Dinosaurs. And me as a young Earth creationist, it was really hard for me to interact with people in that group. I kind of felt like that I really stood out. And like I said, when I would try to defend, dinosaurs live with humans and whatnot, I got utterly creamed. And then after that, it kind of made me think, maybe there's more to my investigation than what I thought. So that I investigated further, and then I found out about Hugh Ross and Reasons to Believe and a few others. And I remember on that journey, I talked to so many different people, like I talked with some of the staff from Reasons to Believe. I talked with some of the staff from Answers in Genesis. And then I found out about biologos from a channel called Stated Clearly or Stated Casually.
Yeah, I watched them.
So I saw his video, Science versus the Ark Encounter. And this was when that I was starting to doubt young Earth creationism. When I saw his videos exposing Ken Ham, like all of the lies that he has said about Archaeopteryx, at that time, I was subscribed to Ken Ham and Answers in Genesis on YouTube. I liked his Facebook page. I would watch his sermons all the time. But when I saw that, it really showed his true colors. Then that's when I unliked his page, unsubscribed. And in his series of videos, he actually mentioned bio logos. And so when he mentioned bio logos, it made me go check it out. Then after that, I also found Inspiring Philosophy. And Inspiring Philosophy really gave me a much better understanding of what the Bible is. Man, it's funny how I went on this whole long journey, this whole long investigation to find out what the Bible says about dinosaurs, when it actually doesn't say anything about dinosaurs at all.
Sweet. So, Tony, did you watch his debate?
I haven't watched it yet. It's in my it's in my playlist, but I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that he spent his entire time talking about, well, probably saying that we claim that life came from an amoeba, even though that's not what evolutionary theory says.
I thought it was a rock.
Well, no, but I mean, in my debate with him, he says, well, you believe life, all of us came from an amoeba. I was like, no, we don't say that. And then he brings out a textbook and he says something about Protista. I'm like, well, Protista is not an amoeba. And no, we don't claim we came from Protista either. And then he grabs another textbook and he's like, well, it says we all come from a singular cellular animal. I'm like, well, That's still not a protista, and it's weird. I don't know why he bothers to use phylogeny when he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Ken Hovind really doesn't know what he's talking about, and
Oh,
I mean, the
oh,
fact
sorry.
that we can't tell how old a dinosaur is because dinosaur fossils do not talk. It's like that is just absurd.
Oh, did he call you not a real Christian because you believe in evolution?
Oh yeah, he did it, and and then but that was the whole point. Like that was the whole point. Like to the opening of my debate. The whole point was like that the heart of Christianity is not when the dinosaurs lived. The whole heart of it, the whole point to it, what Christianity depends upon is whether or not Jesus really was who he said that he was. And I also mentioned how even though you could take a young earth creationist interpretation, you absolutely don't have to. And so when he said that, that just kind of implied to me that he didn't really listen to what I said. But that's just Ken Hovind for you.
Yeah. So, talk about your debate. How did what was the layout of it? How did it go?
Mine or Tony's?
Yours.
So it actually ended up being very biased, especially with the moderators. If you look at the debate, they actually labeled him Dr. Dino. Oh no, wait, what was it? Dr. Dino, Dr. Ken Hovind, which he has no PhD in, and so yeah, he's not a doctor. So they actually didn't give me enough time, which I kind of think that they did it on purpose, just to kind of make it seem like as a Kent Hovind won, which some of his rebuttals to some of my rebuttals, I actually had some rebuttals ready, but because of lack of time, and they were throwing so much at me at once, and so then I was wanting to get the 1 point at a time. I actually asked Ken Hovind, so what were some of your other points again? And he never answered. But yeah, and even though it was my very first live debate, I think that I did pretty well.
You went on a different channel than Tony did, didn't you?
Yeah. So originally, I was trying to have it on Modern Day Debate, but unfortunately, James and I we had a fallout. It mostly was just miscommunication and a misunderstanding between us two, and and I definitely hope that we can get it resolved soon. It's because James seems like a nice guy and all that, and I also know that if I had it on Modern Day Debate, it definitely wouldn't have been biased. So once that fallout happened, I kind of felt like that I had to have it on Kent's channel, which actually ended up being kind of a disadvantage on my part because that Standing for Truth and that other guy are very biased for Kent Hovind.
Yeah, it wasn't Standing for Truth your debater, your moderator too, Tony?
Yeah, he really was a non-participatory. He really didn't do much. There was an agreement that both Kent and I had that we wouldn't talk over each other, and in the end, once he started talking over me, it was me that had to say, "Hey, Kent, we agreed not to talk over each other. I will listen to you. I listened to you all this time. You have the chance to listen to me. So listen to me, then go ahead and present your rebuttal." And he agreed, and that was the end of it. So I can't say he's a great moderator, but he definitely is. I mean, he's not biased as a moderator because he really doesn't do anything, which is fine.
Was he biased for you, or is Eric, or is he neutral?
Modern day debate or Standing for Truth?
Standing for Truth. Talking to Eric during his debate.
Standing for Truth. I know where he stands on a lot of things, and he kept silent on almost every one of the details that he should have wanted to talk about. So, I mean, I know he's definitely biased towards Kent Hovind, but I don't think as a moderator he was extremely biased at all. I think he was relatively fair.
What about your debate, Eric?
Well, with mine now, now it just definitely seemed like it was biased on, when I had mine, it was because of they, like that they had him, as Dr. Kent Hovind, and also the fact that I didn't have, the time, like to get to some of my rebuttals. And what's funny, I actually was originally supposed to debate Standing for Truth about whether or not dinosaurs ever lived with humans, but then he backed out. And it was kind of odd to me. It was because that, originally Standing was actually very enthusiastic about debating me about dinosaurs. Then he backed out, and I thought, okay, well, there's many possibilities. Either he chickened out, or maybe he lost interest, or who knows. I just thought it was just kind of odd about how he was so enthusiastic about debating me about dinosaurs, and then he just changes his, he changed that the last minute. But hey, I guess that sometimes people do change their minds. But and so then after he backed out, my thought, either I can debate Bill Morgan about it, or maybe I can debate Nephilim Free. But then James mentioned Kent Hovind. When he mentioned Kent Hovind, it actually made me think about this. When I was a young Earth creationist, I actually used to watch Kent Hovind's sermons about dinosaurs. Man, that when James said that I could debate him, I was like, that right there is confronting my past. Perfect. And so then when he mentioned Kent Hovind, I was all set on debating him.
Awesome. So who went first in the debate? I tried to watch it at work last night, listen to it, but I couldn't be too busy to do it.
To mine?
Yeah. Who went? Yeah, yours. Who went first?
Well, the thing about debates with Kent, he prefers to have people go first, and I'm pretty sure it's because of I'm pretty sure it's because it's a tactic, for him. I like that he probably thinks he'll give him the advantage some way somehow. But yeah, Tony, when you had yours with him, wasn't it you that went first also?
No, he went first. He decided he was going to present what he did, and I was very shocked. I actually thought that he was going to want to go second, but he didn't. He chose to go first.
That's very surprising.
Yeah.
Do you think that you know why that he opted to go first for yours?
Well, I really can't. I mean, all I can do is speculate. I mean, the point, the topic of the discussion was which has more scientific application, and he chose to just go after, the weaknesses of evolutionary theory or the gaps in our scientific knowledge. And so that was the first thing I brought up is, look, I'm not going to say evolution is a perfect theory. I'm not going to say it is even true. I'm not going to say that creationism is wrong. All I'm going to say is one of them has more scientific application than the other. And then I went down a list of things that evolution has that we would not know about had we not already had the evolutionary model. And he never once addressed that. He never once tried to refute it. He just continued to try to say, well, Tony, how do you explain this? I don't care how to explain. I already talked about how I'm going to accept that evolution is wrong from the beginning. I just want to talk about that's what the whole point was the scientific applications of the theory. He never presented a single scientific application for creationism and never refuted any of mine that were, applications of evolutionary theories. not just evolution, but also uniformitarianism. I consistently brought up that the only reason you can drive a car today is because of uniformitarianism, which he is against. And he never once even attempted to refute that.
Yeah, and I kind of had the same thing happen with my debate with him. There actually were rebuttals that I gave to some of his, arguments, and and some of the stuff that I argued in the beginning and even throughout the debate. He never said anything about it afterwards, and he actually pretty much ignored some of the things that I said. Like one of the things I said in my debate, when he brought up the Ica stones, I said, Kent, just because there are carvings of something, it doesn't mean that it existed. Like this, for an example, a medieval rabbit, a anthropomorphic medieval rabbit riding a lion. So, if you're going to argue that the Ica stones are proof that humans lived with dinosaurs because people carved on it, well, then this is evidence that anthropomorphic rabbits do exist out there. And afterwards, he never said anything about it. Probably it's because that he was like, "Oh crap, he kind of does have a point." Which, I mean, Kent is one of the only few young Earth creationists that I'm aware of out there who still argue for the Ica stones, and I even point out to him they are inaccurate descriptions of dinosaurs. Dinosaurs had fused vertebrae, and because of their fused vertebrae, they wouldn't have walked like that. And I even mentioned tyrannosaurs were never even found in that area. And so what? They were depicting dinosaurs that never even lived there? And then like he brought up, oh, the stones from the 1500s. Here's the thing about the stones from the 1500s. There's no evidence that they ever even depicted dinosaurs, even though that they're lost. But at the same time, though, some young Earth creationists will say, oh, well, the possibility is there, so therefore that's evidence. Which actually reminds me of a question that a young Earth creationist asked me about evolution. I wasn't able to answer it. And then I said this just so I could try to make sure like that they couldn't get away with that whole stupid thing about, oh, you can't answer it, and so therefore it's evidence for a young Earth. I said, that's the logical fallacy of arguing from silence. Just because the possibility is there, it doesn't mean that it's evidence in of itself. Because that's like saying that because space is so vast, that Darth Vader must exist somewhere out there. And so yeah.
You mean he doesn't?
Say what?
You mean he doesn't exist? It's all ruined now.
He didn't bring up the Ica stones around me, but I mean, I've already done an entire episode on the Ica stones, and
which I actually
you're what's that?
Oh, sorry, but which I actually have seen your video about that, and actually in preparation to debate Hovind, and even when I deconverted from young Earth creationist, young Earth creationism. That actually was when I found your series of videos, and I actually remember when I saw your video about the Ica stones, that actually made me realize, hey, these stones are a load of crap.
That means a lot, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man, for sure. And so then that actually like what was when he said that you actually were going to be a part of this podcast. I was like, heck yeah. And it's because that you actually kind of played a big part in me deconverting from young Earth creationism, seeing, just how a lot of it was bullcrap, like the Comro figures, which I actually am very surprised that Ken Hovind didn't bring that up, and even flood legends, which when he brought up Noah's flood in my debate with him, I actually was going to use actually the same things that you said, in your video about flood legends, that actually what was going to use that on Kent, but lack of time prevented me.
Uh,
Yeah, well, to be very fair, almost well. First of all, thank you, by the way. But to be fair, almost I would say a good 75% of my show is based on arguments that I first heard from Ken Hovind. When I say that he taught me real science, I'm not bullshitting. I mean, he really it was exploring his arguments and actually going to the primary sources that made me realize he was full of it. It took that. I mean, I actually watched one video he had that had so many representations that I found out were misrepresentations that I just went, "Oh yeah." I mean, if he's got this thing where he wants to think he's saving people, and maybe he is, but I would say in my case he's more responsible for me becoming an outspoken atheist than anything any atheist has ever done.
And what's funny when you say that, that actually was one of the reasons why one of the other reasons why that I wanted to debate him is because young Earth creationists like him constantly argue, oh yeah, old Earthers, evolutionists are making Christians into atheists. No, Kent, you are doing that. And then what I was trying to do, like with my opening, I was trying to say, even though you don't have to be a young Earth creationist, you don't have to be a Christian, you don't have to be an atheist. It's just, you know, there are many other options in Christianity, the whole age of the earth and evolution. The problem with Kent Hovind and Ken Ham, they're make it seem like, oh, there's only one option, and if you don't pick this one option, you are not a Christian.
oh, did he bring up how how evolution is a religion?
With my debate or with Tony?
Yeah, when your debate, talking about your debate today.
I'm pretty sure that he did. It's because that's his catchphrase. Oh, evolution is just a dumb religion. And he also even brought up that debunked argument about that Stegosaurus carving. And then after that, he mentioned, oh yeah, well this one guy thinks it's a Stegosaurus. I'm like, well, sorry, but you and that one guy do not understand Stegosaurus anatomy. Many even pointed out the head is too big to be a Stegosaurus, and there's no thagomizers, and it has mammalian ears. It's like you don't, and it was like when I said that, that pretty much refuted both what Kent said and what that one other guy that he mentioned about Stegosaurus. It's like you don't understand. Oh yeah, and also in preparation for my debate with him, I saw Dapper Dino debate Ken Hovind about if birds are dinosaurs. Dapper Dino actually got Ken Hovind to admit he doesn't even know what a dinosaur is. And then I wanted to use that against Ken Hovind. It's because, he's saying we should take his word for when the dinosaurs lived, but yet he doesn't even know what a dinosaur is. So then that's why I said, you know what, Kent, why don't I be your science teacher? And so I actually showed him this. This is how, these are some of the ways how we know what a dinosaur is. Lizard-hipped, Sornithrician, and bird-hipped, Ornithorician. Many even brought up this. Are its two legs under its body? Yes. Does it have scales or feathers? Yes. Then it's a dinosaur. And I also even brought up embryology, which is pretty good evidence that birds are dinosaurs. And even with this, and so people like Ken Hovind usually will argue, "Oh yeah, well birds today have teeth." No, they actually don't. Yeah, birds actually don't have teeth. They actually have serrations in their beak, and we know that they're just serrations in the beak because it's made of keratin, and that's what their beaks are made of. And I even brought up in embryology, we see the long bony tail, which we only, which theropod dinosaurs did have. And I brought up, yes, modern day birds do have long tails too, but they have a short nubby bone with long feathers growing off of it. So they have a long tail for a completely different reason. And I also was very surprised that Kent Hovind never brought up our Archaeoraptor, because Kent would always use that as as evidence that dinosaurs are not birds. Sorry, birds are not dinosaurs. And I was very surprised that he didn't bring that one up. And after I brought up all that evidence in embryology, he never said anything about it. There actually was one argument I actually forgot to bring up with dinosaur and bird evolution, is that with fossil evidence in theropods, and especially in raptors, we see quill marks. And those are the same quill marks that we see in modern day birds for feather anchoring points. And Tony even did a whole video about dinosaur and bird evolution. And actually I wanted to bring up some of those points too, but lack of time again. How in T-Rex we find a wishbone, the same wishbone in a lot of other birds. And the fact that Kent never even addressed any of that, I was very surprised.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that with him, he doesn't really go into those kind of specifics, because most of the specifics about bird evolution, or at least the most compelling evidence about bird evolution, happened after he went to jail. And I'm not saying that I'm not chastising him for that, but I mean, he hasn't read anything since then. And I don't know if there's a reason why. There probably is, but he hasn't read anything about that.
Did he read anything before then, or after then, or any at all ever besides the Bible? Did he read that?
I mean, okay, I've heard rumors. Excuse me, hold on. I've heard rumors that he's got dyslexia, and I don't want to shame him for that. Right. So I can understand not being able to read about stuff, but I mean, he's got a whole group of cronies behind the camera that do have the ability to read, or at least presumably do. But where I got most of my arguments about bird evolution was actually from his son, Eric Hovind, who actually has taken the time to actually look into bird evolution and some of the issues with it. And so that gave me a great idea for an episode. And again, I'm freaking complimented and humbled that you actually watched that video. Thank you, dude.
Yeah, man, for sure. And actually, and also in preparation, because there are times where I won't always have time to be on my phone or be at my apartment, what I thought that I could do, I actually can burn like some YouTube videos onto a CD, just to help me prepare for when I'm driving and whatnot, and if I don't have time to do other stuff. I thought that what I could do is to burn some YouTube videos, and actually the majority of those videos that I burned were actually your...
The Tony Reed on Reed on CD for $9.99.
Hopefully for free, actually.
Yeah.
You probably noticed that I don't tend to monetize my videos. There's only one video in my entire list that's monetized, and it's because I happen to use BBC bit of video. And they're like, yeah, well, and they decided they're going to monetize it, even though it wasn't monetized to begin with. But so if you watch my episode on bird evolution, you'll see an advertisement, but it doesn't go to me. It goes to the BBC.
Yeah, and you also have probably noticed on your channel like that, I have given you a lot of ideas for what you could do about some episodes. Like that, there's this one carving from Mexico, which young Earth creationists claim is a Ankylosaurus, and Dragon Legends, and also the whole, and also the whole argument that, oh yeah, well, our blood has more common with pigs than with apes, so what? Evolved from pigs. Huh?
Because I think he's on his phone, and his phone has issues with the thing. He kicked out again.
Maybe, maybe he just needs to talk to a tech guy or something.
So, so do you think you won the debate or you lost the debate personally?
Well, I kind of think it was kind of both. Just like with how that they gave me not as much time, they kind of made it seem like that I kind of lost in a way. But but at the same time, though, of course, a lot of people who are biased against Kent Hovind will say that, oh, he won. And also, even at the very end, Kent Hovind even said, I won. It's like, that's a very arrogant thing to say. And also, you are just jumping to conclusions.
Isn't it the audience's job to say who won or not the debaters themselves?
Right.
I'm pretty sure they're going to say, oh, I totally won.
And, a lot of people have been saying that. A lot of people have been saying like that. I won. And also, well, not my whole family, but some of my family have actually seen my debate. Afterwards, they actually texted me and they actually came up to me saying, Eric, I never knew that you were so knowledgeable about the Bible and science. And afterwards, they said, Eric, I knew that you were smart, but that really, really, really impressed me. And I'm like, hey, thanks.
What you, Tony? Do you think he won, or do you think Kent pull out a victory finally?
Well, I had people vote before the video on what they thought about evolution versus science versus creationism as far as the scientific application, and then I had them vote afterward, and this was through the channel itself. Now, unfortunately, the broadcast ended before we could really talk about the results, but I mean, I will post these, but the numbers show that more people at the end of the video were converted, if you will, toward evolution than towards creationism. Apparently, some people attended the video initially thinking that creationism was the way, and then by the end of it, they apparently realized that it has no real world applications. So in the end, no, I don't think he won at all. Obviously, I made a difference. I converted a few people, and he converted far fewer, if any, at all. And he lost quite a few, and I lost quite fewer. So yeah, that's so I have to say it's a victory.
So Tony, do you still have you showing issues with your computer? I'm guessing. You're still having laptop issues, and you're on your phone again.
Yeah, I've got another week or two before I'll be hooked up directly. Sorry.
Oh yeah, so Tony, question for you. So you haven't made a how creationism taught me real science video in a while, like since January, the beginning of the year, and and I can understand that you're busy with life and whatnot, and that you have a life outside of that, but currently right now, are you making any now, or do you have any plan in the future?
Did somebody pay you to ask that? Because yeah, I'm totally going. I have another one coming on the last Friday in October, and then every week after that. So yeah, I'm coming back. I've already got a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to be first two episodes are going to be about Russell Humphreys and his stuff. I'm going to be describing or discussing the white hole. He calls it white hole cosmology, which is a total crock. But I'm going to show why. So yeah, I'm coming back, and it's going to be within a month.
Awesome.
And so do you already have your 100th episode plan, where you say we got stuff wrong or already written stuff?
Well, I can't completely plan my 100th episode because, as you probably already know, every 20th episode is devoted to shouting out the people that show me how wrong I am. I don't mind
crediting people for showing me the error of my ways. And so, yeah, the 100th episode will be about that, but there's actually going to be 101st because the 100th episode, even though it's the last of the series, well, it's going to be the end of the season. It's not going to be the end of the show. And so, yeah, I'll be announcing that as well. But no, the 100th episode, I can't really say for sure what's going to be in it until the 99th episode, because it's all about, poking fun at myself and letting people that are smarter than me know that I know that they're smarter than me.
But have you got anything wrong already in your first 10 episodes of this season?
Oh yes. Oh, way wrong.
It's cool how even a day later your knowledge can change. Not your knowledge, scientific knowledge can change. Stuff we didn't know can be like, oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, which kind of goes back to my whole journey about investigating what the Bible says about dinosaurs. Like I said, when I first began it, like I said, I was nowhere near as scientifically literate as I am now. I mean, back then, when I first started, I had no idea what a hypothesis even was. And then, but then as I continued on with the investigation, I learned, a hypothesis versus a theory and a scientific law, as to how gravity works, how evolution works, and how evolution doesn't even explain the origins of life. And that was actually what I pointed out to Kent at pretty much the end of my debate with him, is that evolution does not even disprove God. And then he was talking about how evolution says that we came from nothing. I said, okay, no scientist ever says we all came from nothing. You are talking about abiogenesis, and evolution doesn't really have anything to do with abiogenesis.
Yeah, he has the six theory things all put together in one little.
Yeah,
I've actually argued with him that he should add a seventh one, which is uniformitarianism, because it's not any of the types of evolution that he talks about. But I mean, if he adds that, then now you're arguing that everything that every geologist uses to find coal or oil or diamonds or gold or anything you care about, all of a sudden that's not true, even though that's what geologists use to find those particular items. And I wonder if he's going to expand that list to 7 or just keep it at 6.
Never know with Kent Hovind. And man, I even try to point out to him, the fossil record. And then when he mentioned, there have been human fossils found in the Mesozoic era, and I'm like, yeah, but the Delk print doesn't count. The Acrocanthosaurus footprint in that looks absolutely nothing like a real Acrocanthosaurus footprint. All those alleged human footprints, and he also even mentioned the Puxbury tracks. I'm like, Kent, the Puxbury tracks have been refuted. The Puxbury tracks are actually just theropod footprints, just with the 3 toes faded away, and also the footprints are so far spread out apart that it's impossible for a human to have made them. And then afterwards, he just kind of shrugged it off in an arrogant way, like what Ken Hovind is.
It was a game of incredibly long hopscotch.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I never discussed the Delk print with him, but if he had brought it up, I mean, I would have mentioned that. I mean, just go ahead and take a video camera, go ahead and grab a whole slab of mud and just walk across it and see if you create a single print that looks like the human print in the Delk print. It will not happen, because that does not look like a human print.
Right, it does not at all, and especially by the fact that the big toe is so curled in, but yet the rest aren't. And after I saw the Delk print for the very first time, I actually tried to do that, and it was impossible. To keep my big toe curled while the rest, not curled. I just couldn't do it. And so then after that, it kind of made me think, okay, is the Delk print authentic? Then I saw your video, and I'm like, yeah, that Acrocanthosaurus footprint looks like something off of the Flintstones.
Yeah, it does.
I mean,
And again, thank you for watching.
yeah, man, for sure. But yeah, and and I even pointed out to him like that even the Stegosaurus carving, thing that he brought up, that has actually, Answers in Genesis has actually gone on to say, do not use this argument. And I even told him that. And then he was like, oh, I don't work for Answers in Genesis. Well, no, it's not the fact whether if you work for them or not. It's the fact that they're trying to warn people like you. It's a bad argument.
It's a sad day with even Ken Ham is like more smarter than Kent Hovind.
Right. And then at the very end of the debate, Kent Hovind was starting to say, oh, yeah, you're young. You don't know what you're talking about because you're young. And now, will I acknowledge that there are young people who are very naive and stupid? Yeah. Like, back in the second grade, back when 9/11 happened, I was so young. I was in second grade. I didn't know what was going on. And I actually thought it was a giant monster attacking the city. But it wasn't until later on when I found out what really happened is because, of course, the teachers are not going to tell a bunch of second graders that, hey, a bunch of innocent people were brutally murdered. And what I also brought up to him, you should not always underestimate people for their age. Alexander the Great conquered countries when he was only 18 years old. And after that, he said, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I was tragedy. I was like kindergarten when the Challenger thing happened. Challenger shuttle explosion happened. We were watching it at school.
But yeah, and it's very interesting to think that Ken Hovind's like 66, and I'm 26, and the fact that we have that huge age gap, and yet we debated, and it's kind of sad on his part because I'm way younger than he is, and even I'm smarter than him about a lot of things.
Because you probably actually look up stuff and study things, and you want to learn.
Right, and that was the whole point to my investigation. Which, I mean, to be honest, there were some parts during my investigation when it got me close to, to being, from leaving Christianity. And especially when people like Ken Ham were saying, oh, well, you can't be a Christian if you accept evolution. But obviously I'm a theistic evolutionist now. And so obviously that never happened. And now during that investigation, I actually would watch a lot of videos like from atheists like Heath and Professor Stick, and that actually gave me a pretty good understanding as to where atheists are actually coming from. And and when I first announced my debate on YouTube, not on YouTube, Facebook, I have a friend of mine who is a young Earth creationist, and then he commented saying, even though I do not agree with you on theology and science, I want you to convince me. And so the part of me wanted to do the opening with the whole thing, with the whole controversy about Copernicus and the Earth does move. When it says in Psalms that the Earth doesn't move, and
Why, is he a flat earther or?
No.
No.
Oh yeah, and the funny thing about flat Earth. So before I had my first ever live debate with Kent, so how I got more experience with debating people was when I would debate on the comment section on YouTube and through Facebook groups and whatnot about people who think that the Earth is flat. So I actually never even knew that there even were still people who think that the Earth is flat until a few years ago when a friend of mine shared an article about it saying, didn't this debate end centuries ago? And then when I saw that, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So then it made me want to investigate that. And afterwards, I was like, wouldn't it be kind of fun if I would argue with a bunch of flat earthers? And so then that actually was the only reason why that even joined some Facebook groups, why I joined some flat earth Facebook groups. It was just so I could argue with them. And yeah, I mean, some of the things they told me were absurd. Like, one of the things they told me is that the Earth is flat because football does not exist.
What?
Like, what?
What?
I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, what does football have anything to do with the shape of the Earth?
Over 10 years ago, there was a group called the Pelagian Society, and they had a website, and I actually visited it, and I was reading through it, and it took till I actually looked through their FAQ to realize they were joking. And one of the questions was, is it true there is no Nebraska? And the answer was, yes, it's true there is no Nebraska. It's all a conspiracy. The next question was, is it true there's no South Carolina? And he's like, yeah, it's true. That's a myth too. And I went, this has to be a joke. I realized at that point in time it had to be a satire. And so from then on, I've had a hard time accepting that people actually accept the idea of a flat Earth.
But
It's just hard for me to accept it.
But there are people who genuinely do believe it. And I thought that with that guy who said that football's not real. And I said to him, dude, are you being serious or what? And then he showed, no, I'm being serious. And it's like, so what? Does he think that they're all a bunch of holograms or something? When he goes to football games, is he going to tell everybody his newfound knowledge that football's fake?
And did you ask him or what?
Yeah, and I did. And then he was all saying like that, like that they're just trying to trick you into thinking the Earth is round with football. And
What?
I'm so dumbfounded. It's like football has nothing to do with the shape of the Earth. And there also was one other person, like there was this one gal on YouTube who I got into a debate with on the YouTube comment section. Now, she actually is pretty hot herself, but her intellect, I mean, she's not the sharpest tool in the shed. She actually argued with me saying that the Earth is flat because a quarter is round and is still flat. And I'm like,
was this orphan something?
It's like, it's like flat Earth. I'm trying to remember her username. Flat Earth vegan. It's a pretty long one.
Oh. Okay.
But yeah, if you try to type in flat Earth vegan something, you might find. I mean, it's a long username, so it's kind of hard to memorize.
I don't.
And
yeah, I doubt I'll do that.
There also was one other flat earther, like, who argued with saying that gravity is not real because, how can the characters in Dragon Ball Z like be floating in the show if gravity is real? So therefore, the Earth is flat.
That's got to be a joke.
It's a cartoon. They can draw any way that they want.
That's got to be a joke. There's no way anybody's making that joke seriously.
I mean, I have lost all hope in humanity, so.
You're like,
okay, so if I was going to make an argument about at gravity, I would say gravity doesn't exist. The Earth just sucks. That would be the end of it.
Gravity's not real, guys, because Superman can fly. Superman's been since the 30s or however long he's been flying for.
Planet just sucks.
So Tony named this episode. Tony had to get him to the end of this episode. how'd you come up with this episode name, Tony? The Hoven Hustle.
Yes, the Hoven Hustle instead of the Gish Gallop. I mean, because the Hoven goes from not just argument to argument, but from scientific discipline to scientific discipline. He will argue physics and then suddenly go to biology. And then all of a sudden, he'll go to genetics. And then all of a sudden, he'll go to geology. This is the Hoven Hustle, not the Gish Gallop, the Hoven Hustle.
Yeah, and he pretty much did that with me too, because my debate with him ended up being more of a debate about the Bible more so than did dinosaurs live with people or not, because that was the title of the debate. And yeah, and I tried to tell him, Kent, this is off topic, but he was like, oh, but it's the heart of the issue. And I'm like, fine.
So you couldn't stay on topic of you either?
Oh yeah, I was trying to stay on topic whether or not dinosaurs live with people, but he was wanting to argue about verses about in the Bible, which all of his arguments from the Bible, I pretty much refuted those two, and after when I refuted them, he never said anything, and yeah, it's just, I guess that's just Ken Hovind for you.
The sitcom. That's our Kent. Da, 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 da. So so we'll talk about your debate. Anything else happened that you want to bring up, or
with mine?
Well, yeah.
So one point that I was going to argue, you guys probably know of like that alleged sauropod carving and whatnot.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring
Which
this up.
one? Oh, that one, yeah.
So I actually was going to bring this up, but lack of time. And so I was wanting to point out to him, here's the real one. Who can see that it wasn't originally supposed to be a sauropod. The legs are just a stain. Mouse was going to tell him sauropod tails were not like that. I was trying to tell him like that sauropod's tails, like that they were more, straightforward and more kind of upwards, and their necks were kind of more straightforward too for balance. And I also was going to tell him, here it is, not enhanced. You could barely even see it. So, and I was going to point out to him, okay, here's a real carving of a mammoth. Here's the one of the sauropod. That just speaks for itself. Yeah. And I actually have been wanting to do a second debate with him, just because there were tons of other things I was wanting to get into, like Dragon Legends and the Comro figures and all that, but lack of time.
Yeah. I think the problem is, I think it's the naming thing personally. Like the guy who named them terrible lizards, so now they all think they're lizards. They're like.
Yeah, and it's funny because Kent Hovind will always say, "Oh, lizards never stop growing," and it says in the Bible, "Oh, they lived till 900 years old." So that's how dinosaurs got so big. And myself and a lot of people have corrected him, saying, "Kent, they're called terrible lizards because back then people didn't really understand what they were. People back then thought that they were giant lizards, like Richard Owen, and etc." But then it wasn't until time when paleontologists realized, hey, they're not lizards at all. And I told them dinosaurs have forward-facing knees, kind of like with modern-day mammals, and lizards have hips that are more bent towards, kind of like that. And Ken Hovind even made one video saying that how a certain chameleon with 3 horns on its head is a triceratops. No, Oh, and Kent Hovind even had that chameleon at his dinosaur Adventureland, which I heard the one now barely has any dinosaurs at all.
Well, it has chickens. Those would be dinosaurs.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot more accurate than a chameleon. But at the same time, though, people will probably expect to see, like, giant, like, robot dinosaurs and giant dinosaur statues. They're probably not going to expect a chicken. Oh, yeah, speaking about the chicken, I also was wanting to bring up Jack Horner's project about the Chickenosaurus.
Okay.
And how that is pretty solid evidence, too, that, birds are dinosaurs.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Jack Horner using atavisms to breed back dinosaurs?
All that I know is that I have his book, and I actually spoke with him about it. He said that over the course of evolution, there are some genes that get turned on and off. He wants to find those genes to turn it back on. He said that he wants to find some animistic genes, and he was able to turn those genes back on for its snout, claws, and legs. But he hasn't really figured out how to do it with a tail. So he was going to do it. There's one way he told me, but I just forgot off the top of my head. I forgot the worst possible time. He said that he was going to have to do the tail a different way than from having to turn back on the animistic genes. He said that he probably was going to have to do that all, just all out of like scratch. And he said that
I've also.
Oh, sorry.
Go. Oh, I'm listening to you.
All right, and so one last thing. He said that he has gone pretty far with his project. He said we should have it within a few more years. And I also asked him, so what made you want to do this? He said that he's always wanted a dinosaur as a pet.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel too. What I've actually heard that the real one of the other stumbling blocks is that he can select chickens to produce teeth, but he can't select them to produce teeth with enamel. Did he mention that, or has he overcome that?
He didn't mention that to me, so either he did overcome it, or maybe he hasn't yet. He never said anything to me about it.
Oh,
wow.
A question for Eric. During your debate, did Kent bring up that Mary Schweitzer?
Oh yeah.
Issue?
So it wasn't Kent Hovind who brought that up. It actually was one of the young Earth creationists, like in the comments wanting to ask questions. So one of them asked me, okay, explain the preservation of the soft tissue without using that was preserved by iron. I'm like, well, there is no other way. That's how it was preserved. And I also even brought up, I even spoke to Mary Schweitzer on the phone about that back in October. And I actually do have the phone records if they wanted to actually prove that. I did. Mary Schweitzer told me the whole story. And then she told me about just how utterly irritated that she is that young Earth creationists misrepresent her work. It never has been the scientific consensus that, things just cannot last a long time. Any young Earth creationist who says that, you don't understand preservation. I'm sorry, but you don't. It's because by saying that, you're also saying, dinosaur fossils shouldn't be preserved themselves too, because they're from a long time ago too. And I mean, we have not fossilized. We have insects trapped in amber from around the time of the dinosaurs. It's like, have you ever seen Jurassic Park? And we also have a dinosaur tail with feathers. And I even mentioned that too. Have a dinosaur tail preserved in amber. And I also brought up like that, it was preserved by iron. And who could read all the peer-reviewed papers to prove that. And I also brought up, here's the thing that young Earth creationists ignore about that. The collagen in that is pretty much identical to ostrich collagen. So that actually helps support dinosaur and bird evolution. That does not support a young Earth whatsoever. And so I really wish that young Earth creationists would stop using that argument, because Mary Schweitzer has, she emphasized that with me and to a lot of other people numerous times, that she's so irritated about it. It's like, out of respect for her, just please stop using that argument. It's not a good argument.
Yes, he's another example of a Christian or believer that doesn't that can still believe in, let's say, believe in science. Can still do science and still be a believer. They don't affect her at all.
Right, and also, and the majority of Christians actually are not young Earth creationists. There actually are a lot of scientists who are Christians, like Francis Collins, Mary Schweitzer, of course, and even Robert Baker. Robert Baker is even a preacher, which I actually tried to contact him during my investigation, but he's a pain in the butt to get a hold of. And there are tons of other.
Well, yeah, he probably gets every maniac out there contacting him. But yeah, in my very first episode, I point out that the vast majority of Christians accept evolution, and the vast majority of creationists aren't even Christian. They usually are Hindus or Muslims, and the vast majority of people who accept evolution argument about whether Christianity is compatible with evolution. It has, I'm not even a Christian, and I'm the first one to say, hey, Christianity is not it. I'm one of the first people to jump on that bandwagon and say, hey, you're pointing out something that's it's absolutely wrong here.
Right, and of course, and I have encountered like some atheists in the YouTube comment sections, like, who will argue that that's not compatible. They may not think it's compatible. It's because of their viewing the young Earth creationist interpretation. Yeah, it's just evolution at most. All it does is just disprove a young Earth creationist interpretation. And so, yeah, there are tons of other ways how you can interpret the Bible. Even Ken Hovind brought up Adam and Eve. There are tons of ways to interpret that too. Personally, how I view Adam and Eve, they were real people in my eyes, but they were just portrayed in the Bible in a very poetic way. Kind of like how when someone says, "Oh, I have a friend who's all brains and bronze." There also is even one interpretation out there where there's more than one Adam and Eve, and I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, you've done a video on the Adam and Eve, haven't you, Tony?
Nope, I've not done one on Adam and Eve.
Oh, two.
I've done episodes on episodes on mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosome Adam, but not the biblical Adam and Eve.
That's what I meant.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah.
But
yeah, I covered them both.
But yeah, it's just, if you go with a young Earth creationist interpretation with Adam and Eve, and Noah's flood being a worldwide flood, then that would mean that all the population was repopulated through incest. It's like, doesn't that kind of tell you like just how bad of an interpretation that is?
Yeah, it's like, I read that article about the bottleneck. That'll be a huge bottleneck effect thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We were like, what's our like 7,000 years ago? We had a bottleneck effect, and that's how close we are now with our
creation evolution.
What was that? I think it was 7,000 years ago. We had a bottleneck thing during the eruption, but I don't know how bad it would be if, like I said, if we had the flood bottleneck.
Yeah, and one other thing I was want to bring up with Hovind is that one way how we know that the fossil record was not deposited by a worldwide flood is because of chalk deposits in the Cretaceous layer. Chalk deposits were laid down by very calming conditions. And so, a worldwide flood like that was definitely not a very calming thing. So the fossil record in flood geology is, just flood geology by now should be abandoned. But of course, there are people who are too stubborn for their own good.
So you think, anything else you guys want to say, or wrap this up?
Yeah, it's gone on for a while. But yeah, Tony, how about you go first?
Well, I don't have much to say except that it's interesting that anybody that debates him in the future ought to know that it doesn't matter what the topic is. He has the exact same points to bring up, and if you want to be smart about it, call him on the fact that find a subject that he doesn't have covered in his arguments, and then call him on it when he doesn't argue what the subject is about. In my debate, it was about the scientific applications. It didn't matter which one was true. He was still prepared for a which one is true argument. Continuously remind him this is not about what's true. This is about what has scientific application. It could possibly be true that creationism is right. It could be, but it has no useful application. And that's what I tried to bring there. And I did not expect him to be so wrapped up in his own arguments that he didn't even consider the actual topic of this discussion. So, if you're going to argue him again, I would say make sure he sticks to the topic.
Right, yeah. And that was something what I kind of learned from my first debate with him. Try to get him to stay on topic. And I did make a few mistakes during my debate with him, but it was my first ever live debate, and so it kind of was inevitable for me to make mistakes. And the whole entire time I was waiting for him to bring up that whole kind argument, like how a dog cannot produce a non-dog. And then I brought that up to him, and it's like that's like his favorite argument of all time, is that a dog cannot produce a non-dog, when microevolution and macroevolution are the exact same thing. They both
Well, that it's a backward argument, because we're not arguing that a dog would ever produce a non-dog. That's already agreed on. What he needs to do is change that argument to, when has anybody ever seen a non-dog produce a dog? And now we actually have a discussion, because now we're talking about what evolution predicts, and we can show those predictions. We can show that at one point in time, a wolf produced, eventually, one day down the line, a dog. But, that's a backward argument.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
It's all good. I think that you got spot on with my final words. I do want to debate him again. It's just not set in stone yet. But I also don't want to be doing too many debates right now, is because I actually am currently going to school. I actually am planning on going to college for both paleontology and for filmmaking. And so I don't want to overwhelm myself. But also, Standing for Truth really wants to debate me about microevolution and macroevolution. And I told him, one thing at a time. I don't want to stress myself out too much, because, when I was preparing for the debate, I had a lot to, balance in my life. Like the debate, school, friends, family, taking care of my dog, taking care of myself, taking care of my apartment. But yet, I think I balanced it all out pretty well. And Ken Hovind brought up this really stupid argument saying, oh, the dinosaurs went extinct because of oxygen. Again, lack of time prevented me. And I brought out to him, we know the dinosaurs got big because of, the fossilized plants and tree life back then. We know from that oxygen levels were a lot higher. And so then that allowed the dinosaurs to get a lot bigger. And since oxygen levels are not as high now, that's why animals don't get as big now as they did with the dinosaurs. And I also brought up, what I wanted to bring up. So that one guy who brought up that one argument about the dinosaurs going extinct by oxygen, that's just a hypothesis. Just one guy's hypothesis, it has to be supported by a vast amount of evidence. And we know that that's not what happened with the dinosaurs. We know that the dinosaurs went extinct because of the KPG rock boundary. And so it was my first debate. I think I did pretty well. And I hope to debate him again. And I also hope that this can, put my foot out the door to do a lot more debates in the future, but one at a time. And actually, my debate so far has actually been getting me a lot of attention. All my coworkers have seen it, my friends and family have seen it, and even other people are now subscribing to my channel because of that. And so I have a feeling that eventually it's going to, now it's not there yet, it's probably going to end up being my most viewed video on YouTube.
So we know about Tony's future plans on his channel. You have any future plans on your channel?
Mine, yes. My channel has been on for 10 years now, and for the longest time, it was a movie channel, since I personally love movies. But recently, I wanted to start branching out because, I don't want to be doing the same thing over and over again for too long. Now, even though, of course, I will still talk about movies on my channel, but I kind of want to branch out and do some other things. I recently started to do some videos on paleontology, and I have done some videos debunking a few arguments from dinosaur deniers. And I also did one video where I pretty much talk about how Ken Ham is destroying Christianity. I also even did an interview with Inspiring Philosophy. I'm actually trying to get more famous Christian apologetics to do an interview with me. I actually tried one with What Do You Mean, but he's just too busy. And because of my debate, a lot of people are probably going to be expecting me to do a lot more videos about young earth creationism. And so, yeah, I definitely have a lot more videos planned about that. I actually plan on debunking, in a separate video, one argument from Standing for Truth about dinosaurs living with humans. So yeah, so it's a variety of things: movie talk, young earth creationism, Christianity, and just whichever pops up.
Cool. All right, I'll have their channel. I'll have Tony and Eric's channels in the description below. Join me this Monday as me and my guests on this podcast will talk about the game Ultra Despair Girls. So if you're anime game fan, go watch it. If not, I'll see you next time. Never stop learning and enjoy the randomness. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.